Hello. Happy Wednesday. Today is going to be a little different, as recently I have been reading a lot of paranormal and unexplained stories. So I think we're just going to scroll down the Unexplained subreddit and read some of the top rated of all time. And not all of them are going to be that strange, maybe, or that interesting, or that paranormal, as in this first one. My pee smells like warm maple syrup. And not just a little bit, it's strong. Friends come over and ask if I'm making pancakes. No, I just peed. I'd say. Then utter confusion. I always thought this was normal, and everyone's pee smelled like syrup. When I'd wake up as a kid and my mom was preparing breakfast, the smell of syrup would resonate in the room. I thought that everyone had just taken their morning piss. I had no idea that syrup was the source. Sometimes I shit myself. What? Does anyone else's pee smell like syrup? Is this dangerous? My girlfriend doesn't know about it. When she asks why I smell like syrup, I just pretend I had pancakes for breakfast. I don't tell her it's because I pissed my pants. Please help. Okay, what the fudge? Everyone in the comments is laughing really hard at this one because I don't even know what's going on there. I know this might sound weird. I know pain and suffering is historical and part of the human experience. I know joy and pleasure is too. But does anyone else feel like they're in almost a dream state since 2018 specifically? Like the world shifted somehow. Something changed? I've experienced and learned throughout, loved and hated, cried and laughed. But why is it all so fast? And why do some advancements and regressions since just feel unreal? I know it's 2025, but every time I see 2018, this feeling dawns on me. Yeah, maybe a foundational shift in humanity. The underlying war on good and evil is perhaps out of balance right now. The yin is struggling to weigh the same as the yang. I don't know, that's an interesting one. I'm 35 now, but I remember when I was about 12 years old, I woke up one morning from what felt like a very realistic dream, except I recall being with my husband and kids right before I woke up. I don't recall what they looked like, I just remember knowing that's who they were. But it may have been one kid. The moment I woke up, I felt very sad and had this very heavy feeling in my heart about missing them. I was 12, so I tried to brush it off and went on with my day. But the same day when I was going back to sleep, I remembered the dream and felt so sad again, feeling heavy in my heart. It actually took me a few days to get over it because I couldn't understand why in the heck would I miss people that didn't exist in my life. Now that I'm married and do have kids, too, I recall this situation and wonder if it was just a dream. Anyone had a similar experience? Shit, I don't think so. Ooh, this next one. Okay. I was hiking at Gay City State Park in Connecticut during spring a few years ago. My wife was pregnant, so I had gone by myself. I like to take my time and enjoy the outdoors and weather, so I was taking the longest outer circle you can. I think it's about 5 miles total. This is in the middle of the woods. I was about halfway through, and at this point in the trail, there's a downhill section that is all rocks. Anywhere from soccer hall to yoga ball. Soccer ball, I swear it says hall. Anyways, anywhere from soccer ball to yoga ball sized. They make up the entire downhill path, so you either have to walk on them or around them. I like running up hills and down the hills, so I started doing what I always did many times before, hopping from rock to rock down the hill. I was about halfway down the hill when I can't explain what happened to me. I missed a stone or something, but the next second, instead of eating shit, I was floating through the air. I remember seeing the ground moving under me like I was being carried through the air. Then blackness. I woke up lying on my arms and stomach, miraculously in a space between all the stones just large enough for my body. My legs were behind me, resting on a stone. My shins had deep welts from where my legs had fallen on the stone behind me. I remember looking up at the hill and the space where I fell, then called my wife to tell her what had happened, and I was okay. No other part of me was hurt or injured in any way. I went back a couple of days later, and the strangest part, I scoured that same hill for the spot where I fell, and I could not find it. There was no space anywhere in the rocks for someone to fall like I did. I should have slammed my head into a bunch of rocks and either been seriously injured or dead. I can't explain what happened, and it still shakes me thinking about it now, wondering if anyone else had an experience like this. Yeah, I honestly would think it's safe to say I've had a few strange ones where I came out with 0 scratches, and I probably should have had many. But nothing quite like that, except for once. I'll probably tell that story later. Ooh. My son and I were talking about this at Christmas and told his new wife the story, and she got creeped out. I was reminded of how weird the whole thing is, so I decided to share it here. Back around 2008, I was working in the front yard of my house one day when I noticed the window screen of my son's bedroom window was missing. I was pissed off, assuming it got removed and probably broken as he was sneaking out of the house through his window. He was a very rebellious teenager after his mom died. He staunchly denied having done anything with it, point blank stating that when he sneaks out, it's through one of the doors. I didn't believe him. That's funny. I just knew that he had damaged it and then hid it or thrown it away. I also wondered if maybe it was the result of a failed break-in attempt. I looked all over for that missing screen or its broken parts without success. Of course, I planned to replace it, but just never got around to it. The bottom part of the window where the screen would be was blocked by a row of hedges, so it was one of those things that came to mind only now and then. It's a custom house where you just don't order screens that magically fit. Plus, I do sometimes procrastinate about some things. I remember being pressured into getting an estimate to replace all the windows in about 2015. The salesman even commented about the missing screen when we were walking around the house. I didn't get the windows replaced because I thought the price was outrageous and just not worth it. Then, in 2022, we had a severe hailstorm. The storm chewed up my roof. My insurance company came out to approve the repairs. The insurance adjuster and I walked around the house looking at all the damage to the gutters, window screens, glass, etc., to see what was covered by my policy. That's when I noticed it. The missing window screen was no longer missing. It was firmly attached to that window. It didn't have any damage from the hail. It didn't look brand new, and it was one of just a few without hail damage. 2 windows actually had broken glass. I literally get goosebumps from just writing this. Where was that window screen for 14 years? How did it get back on the window? My son, who's now a responsible adult, gets just as creeped out thinking about it. We have no idea what happened. Theories, anyone? That'd be hilarious if his son was just playing a long game. Like a really long game. That'd be a dangerous man. Let's see. Sometimes, I'm really just scrolling today, so sadly, it's always a bit of a gamble. I don't know. Normally, I spend a lot of time on Reddit reading things, saving my favorite ones, but I guess in the past week I've been slacking. I've been playing a lot of Xbox, Battlefield, Fortnite. My niece loves to come down and play Fortnite with me. She's 12, and all of her shithead friends also play, so that's just, a screaming match waiting to happen. Not in a bad way, but gosh. This happened when my best friend and I were 16. The third eyewitness was my dad, who at the time would have been 40. I spoke with my younger sister about this recently, who claims she was also there. And although she did not see what we saw, she witnessed all of us out of nowhere. It's N-O, not K-N-O-W, space, where. Anyways, she witnessed all of us out of nowhere, but at the same time, erupt in disbelief at something we all described exactly the same. I asked my dad a few days later. Neither of us remember my younger sister being there. I have not talked to my best friend at that time since a year or two after we graduated high school. I'll be 31 this April, and this was written about 2 months ago. So, excluding my sister claiming to be there, me, my BFF, Holly, and my dad were in his single cab truck with my dad driving, myself in the middle, Holly at the passenger window. We live in a fairly populated city in South Carolina, and uptown there is usually pretty heavy traffic. We're at a stoplight, waiting to turn right so we can get to the movie theater. I remember waiting for the light to turn, just looking out the front windshield at all the different cars. The light changes to green, and we begin to turn right. As we are turning right, I look at the adjacent stopped traffic that would have been closest to my dad's driver window, the traffic that would have gotten the red light when we got green, and see a man in the driver's seat of a small truck, a little smaller than my dad's single cab truck. As I notice him, I see he is gripping the steering wheel and staring straight ahead at the traffic signals, so not towards us at all. Then, out of nowhere, this man's head glitches. Imagine watching a video online and it's more or less a headshot. Maybe they even move quite a bit in this scene. Then your internet buffers, the video pauses, then all of a sudden plays the scene at a very fast speed. Or imagine in an Exorcist movie, the unnaturally fast jerky movements they do with their heads sometimes, but a continuous motion, not just a few jerky moments. My dad will describe it as how they do it in the Matrix movies. Oh, yeah, good movies. No, the third one's leaves something to be desired, but they are good movies. I haven't seen those since I was a kid and don't remember them, so I can't confirm the relation to what I witnessed. I'll confirm it. Anyway, I see this man do this as we are turning. It lasts only a second and then it ends, and he's continuing to stare out of his windshield at his traffic light as if nothing just happened. I was stunned, and the fact that no one else in my vehicle was saying anything made me wonder if that even just happened. I asked myself if it could have been a sneeze or medical emergency, but no way. No way it was a sneeze. I've seen a million of those in my lifetime. No way it was just a medical issue. It was a glitch. It takes me a couple of seconds to run this train of thought when my dad looks over at my BFF and I and says, "Do y'all just fucking see that?" And at the same time, Holly and I described seeing the exact same event, and my dad corroborated every single detail. To this day, I can call my dad and we can relive the event over in detail by talking about it and agree that we don't know what we saw, but we saw something unnatural that day. Alien, robot, I don't know. He usually calls me once a year as well if we haven't talked about it to make sure I still remember it, to confirm it really did happen. Thoughts? That's a good one. Love a good glitch. Glitch in the software. A glitch in the computer program that runs our existence. The hard thing about scrolling through a page like this is there's lots of videos of lights in the sky, weird clouds, see-through people on home security cameras, things like falling off shelves, cups moving, glowing eyes at the end of porches, sounds, videos of sounds in the middle of the woods, weird shit like that, but can't really do a video on a podcast like that, My 7-year-old nephew was in my living room being a goofball, swinging a toy chainsaw around in one hand. Okay, Leatherface, damn. And a ribbon tied in a loop in the other. The chainsaw had this plastic handle that is a closed loop. Yeah, makes sense. Suddenly, the ribbon and the chainsaw handle passed through each other and became linked. Like when you see a stage magician link two solid, quote-unquote, metal rings. I don't know if I'm just dumb and I'm missing some obvious answer here, but it seems like two solid closed loops passed right through each other. My nephew and I just kind of stared at each other in confusion. Anybody have an explanation for this? No, because what I thought of, honestly, is nothing to do with that, but that just immediately made me think of a Mobius strip, which I think is really cool because it's kind of a simple way to challenge the physics that we think we understand at this moment. I was on a work call and I heard somebody in the house call my name. I kind of yelled back, "Wait a minute, I'm on a call." Couple seconds, minutes later, they did it again really loud. My coworker on the call heard someone yell my name. My house, partner upstairs, no idea what I'm talking about. Kid in the basement playing games, no idea who it could be. But clear as day, they yelled my name. So strange. So this is the absolute truth, exactly as it happened. I'm a longtime RN, and this happened about 4 months ago. A dear old friend and coworker had just died. I had known her for 35 years, and we used to be friends with benefits when we were young. Whoa. She had some chronic health issues and succumbed to COVID. I had an elderly patient in a clinic setting in my hospital, and he said he had one more appointment after the one with us. I was looking at his appointment list and let him know he had 2 more appointments. I asked him where his son was, and he said, "In the truck." I told the patient, "I will call him and let him know you will be longer than you thought." I look up his son's number in the chart and call. The call goes to voicemail, and the voicemail message was from my recently deceased friend. It was her phone. I was stunned and just said, "What? What?" As I listened to the voicemail message, I composed myself and asked the patient what his son's number was because it seems to be listed incorrectly in the chart. The documented number in the patient's chart for his son had the wrong area code down that just coincidentally happened to be the number of my old friend who had died 2 days before. It was like seeing a ghost. After clinic, when I was back in my office, I dialed the number one more time to make sure I wasn't having a psychotic break, and it was indeed her phone. I am not one to be religious or believe in the paranormal, but I can't help but think it was her telling me she was okay. What are the odds of that happening? This is exactly as these events occurred. Totally true. They basically started with the same sentence and ended with the same sentence. That makes me think it's a big, giant lie. Let's see. Ooh, this one's kind of conspiracy. All right. This is not my story. It's my dad's story, who told it to me several times as a kid. I want to share it here because it's absolutely fascinating. My dad grew up with my grandmother in a trailer park. He always told me about his neighbor, who he would visit occasionally whenever his mom needed to give something to him or borrow something. Dad said he was a middle-aged man who lived by himself. One day, when we went over, he peered into the trailer through the neighbor's open door and saw some kind of moving machine sitting on the counter of the kitchen area, with papers scattered around the place. He asked the neighbor what it was, and he said it was a perpetual motion machine he had built himself. Over the course of time, he saw this machine several times. I remember him making hand movements describing how it moved and everything. After a while, my dad says one day a few men, dressed extremely nicely for being in a trailer park, came in and knocked on his neighbor's door. When he answered the door, the men forced their way in and slammed the door behind them. My dad watched as the men eventually came out with not only the man, but the machine and a bunch of the papers, and they took it all away. Dad never saw that man again, and his trailer disappeared a short time after. Ooh, Men in Black, hello. I guess something you should know about my dad is that my dad told me stories of things that happened to him during his life as a kid a lot. As far as I know, he never told me a story that wasn't true or didn't actually happen to him. My dad, before he went down the road of alcoholism was when I was an early teen, was very honest and open about life, his experiences. He never sugarcoated anything for me, even as a kid, and honestly, I believe him. I'm sure there's some kind of explanation, but my dad swears up and down that his neighbor discovered the secret to perpetual motion, and that his discoveries were stolen and most likely wiped from existence from a couple men in suits. Yeah, it's the Men in Black. I mean, shit, you can even look it up, starring Will Smith. and Tommy Lee Jones for like 3 fucking movies. Third one is Josh Brolin. They made a dumb fourth one with the brother of the dude who was married to Miley Cyrus for a little bit. Frick, what's his name? And the chick that's in it is also stars with him in that one Thor movie. She's one of the Valkyries. Chris Hemsworth. I knew it would come to me. Oof, that was kind of paranormal how I just remembered that. My grandfather once told me a story that happened when he was just a child between 1950 and 1960. Where I live now, there were no houses of mine or other houses. There was a ditch, which is still marked on Google Maps, but I think it's already gone. And one day, while my grandfather was outside, he noticed an orb of light in the distance flying along this ditch. It was daytime and sunny, so it couldn't have been a storm discharge. From his descriptions, it seemed to be about 2 meters high, that's 6 feet, but it could... Some people don't know. But it could have been smaller because he was like 8 at the time and may have perceived its size differently. When he tried to get closer, the orb started to run away very quickly into the forest, so he was unable to catch up with it. There were about 5 witnesses, but they were all older than my grandfather, so I don't know if any of them are alive yet. Yeah, they have yet to be alive. Apparently, one of the witnesses thought that they were fireflies clustered together, but later another witness strongly denied this. From the descriptions, it looked something like the picture I've shared, just slightly bigger. The picture is like this old-timey drawing of a bowling ball. It looks like a miniature sun about the size of a bowling ball flying above these, like, Arthur H. Chestington III looking motherfuckers from, like, the 1800s. And they're all really hella surprised to see it. Looks like they're playing cards. When I was younger, I was lying on my mother's bed once and looking at the skylight window. For a split second, I saw light passing over the window very quickly. It was night, and all you could see through it was the sky and trees. The only source of light reaching the window was a yellow lamp by the road. A few years later, I heard my grandfather's story, and I think it might have something to do with it. I'm not sure what it was, but I know it felt like the light came out of nowhere and just flew over my window. If you had similar experiences, let me know what it was and where it occurred. This one happened in Poland. Oh, that's probably why they said, so I don't know if any of them are alive yet, because maybe they translated it into English, or English is not their native language. And the word yet would translate to still. So they meant to say, so I don't know if any of them are alive still. Anyways. All right, we got 2 minutes, so this one's long-ish, but could be interesting. I work a late shift and have insomnia, so I don't usually go to bed till around 5 a.m. My alarm wakes me up at 1 p.m. every day for work. Couldn't tell you the last time I was up before 1 p.m. I fell asleep in the recliner last night, and my husband knows if I fall asleep, just leave me alone. He leaves for work around 9 a.m. I have an entire wall in our living room that is floor-to-ceiling shelves of plants. They are my pride and joy, and while they vary, the majority of my collection is cacti. At noon today, one of my cacti took a high dive off the top shelf and broke all over the hardwood, waking me up. I thought that was strange, but chalked it up to Halloween, and weird things happen. No windows open for the wind to blow it over. Decently heavy pot it was in, and the cat was outside. No reason it should have jumped to its death. I cleaned up the mess and went upstairs. At 12:15, somebody broke into my house via the basement door. I went to investigate the noise, and I'm assuming they heard me walking down the hallway above them and hightailed it out of the house. Squeaking shoes running across the concrete floor, and the basement door slammed hard behind them. By the time I got to the door and outside, I didn't see anybody. Of course, my Ring doorbell was as dead as my cactus. Filed a police report just in case it was happening in the area. We live in a nice, quiet neighborhood with great neighbors all around. I alerted the neighborhood group, charged up my doorbell cams, and went to work. Learned that another neighbor was home for a break-in midday yesterday as well. Same story. Once the person knew somebody was home, they split. They obviously aren't of the intelligent variety due to there being 3 cars here in broad daylight, but I digress. I'd hate to think what would have happened if my cactus hadn't woken me up early today. Gonna buy it a nice new pot this weekend. Alright. A little bit of the paranormal, a little bit of the weird. Although I was kind of hoping for some like more ghost stories or like monsters and shit like that. But again, like I said, a lot of the videos on there are kind of more interesting than the stories, I think. But if I do another thread like that again, I'll make sure to take the time to read a lot and save the very best ones that I find the most interesting, and perhaps on other threads. So, as always, stay cool, spread love, find your inner peace, read a book, go on a bike ride, pet a puppy, and give it some snacks. All right, y'all. I'm out.